Welcome, everybody. I see a few people that are able to join us. I see 10 attendees. So excited to see you all on screen. As you're joining us, and if you're able to, please write on the chat, where are you joining us from? Are you joining us here from the US or from your home country or from another country? Love to see where you're joining us from. And I'll give it about a minute or so people are able to log in. Oh, I have our first one from Germany. Welcome. Armenia. Ahmed from Indonesia, Egypt, Costa Rica, Japan, Iran, Japan, India, Hong Kong, India. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for putting on the chat where you're joining us from. My name is Marina Uehara, and I am the program director for student engagement here in ISSS, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm super excited to have you all here. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds so people are able to join us. In the meantime, I'll ask Emily to play a video for you all on a quick tour of the Twin Cities. Thank you, Emily. Again, welcome everybody. My name is Marina Uehara. I use she, her pronouns. And just like many of you joining us from all over the world, I used to be an international student from Argentina. My parents are from Japan. And so it was super exciting for me to be here as an international student and to be here with all of you today. I am the program director for student engagement in ISSS, and I am super excited to welcome you to our off-campus living workshop today. I'm now going to pass it on over to Ray Wu, our new student program coordinator in ISSS.
Thank you, Marina. Hi, everyone. My name is Ray, the new student program coordinator. I use he, him, his pronoun, currently a rising senior studying psychology. The goal of today's webinar is help you to prepare off-campus living. We encourage to sign up the next webinar and all of our Global Gopher Experience sessions. Today's webinar will contain the resource to find off-campus housing, the tips of off-campus living, leasing information from the student legal services, and amazing tips from the student leaders. We also have Q&A sessions to answer your question today. I will pass the mic to Barbara, which is Assistant Dean and Director to the ISS, to do an official welcome.
Greetings, everyone. I'm delighted to also welcome you to today's session. My name is Barbara Kapler. I'm Assistant Dean and Director of International Student and Scholar Services, and I use she, her pronouns. I am thrilled for you to be beginning your academic journey at the University of Minnesota. We know that with COVID, that you have endured an enormous number of challenges. And these are in addition to a pretty arduous process to apply as an international student to institutions in the United States and to the University of Minnesota. We applaud you on enduring those challenges and being so persistent in your goals to continue your academic journey. We are thrilled that you've chosen the University of Minnesota. I too chose University of Minnesota for my graduate studies, and I'm delighted that I did so. So welcome and congratulations to each of you. We know today's session is very important, that where you live is a big part of your community at the University of Minnesota. And for some people, where you live is an opportunity to be creating close friendships. So we're really excited about the information that we're bringing to you today. Today's session is going to be a really great mix of hearing from professional staff and from students. I want to thank our campus partners for today's off-campus living workshop with Scott Creer from Housing and Residential Life, Kendra Turani from Off-Campus Living, and Adam Ealing from Student Legal Services. Today is also a great opportunity to be hearing directly from students. So welcome, enjoy the session, and I turn the program back to Marina.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Ray, as well, for doing the introduction for today. Today, just a quick overview of how this is going to work is we're going to have quick, short presentations from our campus partners, as well as at the end, having our student leaders present. And there is a Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. You are able to submit questions anonymously, but if you do submit it with your contact information and it's a question that we need to follow up with, please do so we can follow up appropriately. Some questions will be answered live. We received a lot of questions from a lot of you through our registration process, so we have included those in our presentations. So please go ahead and use the Q&A function for today to submit questions. We may not be able to answer all of them. So if there are additional questions, please email us at isssnew@umn.edu. We have also included COVID-specific information from our campus partners at HERO, the Health Emergency Response Office at the University of Minnesota, and they will also be presenting with us at the July Wellness and Health webinar later in July. And at the end of the session today, we'll send you the registration links for all of our summer sessions. One big important update for a lot of international students is as of Sunday, we received an update from the CDC that students flying into the United States will no longer require, we will no longer require negative COVID test if you're flying in to the US. This is a big change from last policies where you had to submit proof of a negative COVID test. Vaccinations are still required as of right now by President Biden's proclamation from October. And we do encourage students to get vaccinated as soon as possible. In June, we will have more information. Later in June, we will have more information about additional documentation required. But as of right now, you will have to submit an attestation online indicating that you have received vaccination. Remember that prior to travel, US carriers are requiring you to show proof of that as well. If you have any questions, please let us know at ISSS New, and we will be more than happy to answer those questions. Our next campus partners to present is from Housing and Rest Life. So I'm going to pass it on over to Scott. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Scott Prier, and I'm the Housing Properties Coordinator for Housing and Residential Life. Among my responsibilities is the off-campus listing service. This service is the bridge between area apartments that are for rent and our students at the university. Property owners and managers pay to list on the site, which provides some degree of security knowing that a listing on the site is from an actual rental business or company. Companies that are not in compliance with our university's off-campus housing program policy are removed from the site and not allowed to list. This site can be reached anytime by going to housing.umn.edu/off-campus or listings.umn.edu, which you see at the top of your screen. The biggest question and concern we get from students living in the off-campus market is what to expect to pay. We work with vendors to track market rates, and reflected on this slide are what you should expect to pay for a unit in the university area. Market rate for an apartment is the rate in which you expect to pay when you are renting an entire apartment. Market rate per bed is what you should expect to pay if you're renting just a bed space or a bedroom within an apartment. When looking at apartments, both rates will be used, so you need to understand exactly what's being sold, the apartment or the bed space. How to search for housing is largely based on the preferences of the individual. You need to understand yourself, your living habits, and your expectations out of a rental unit. The lower the price often means the lower the expectations for services should be. Higher prices often mean you are looking at multi-story, large apartment buildings. These types of facilities normally have locked entrances, desk staff, amenities, covered parking, and other features that come with that higher price point. Can you get units in our market cheaper? Yes. And you need to understand the reduction in expectations that come with that lowered price point. You should ask or look for what's included in that price point. Are there furnishings? What utilities? Internet? Are there security companies on site? Some other items of note to help you in your search for housing. Email is often the best method for contacting properties. It is not uncommon to sign a lease for your space that you have not seen. The space you're going to be leasing is likely currently occupied today. So a property manager to show those spaces would require constant entry into those spaces, violating the privacy of the current occupants. So touring those specific spaces is an unrealistic thing to expect in our market. Leases are most often 11.5 months to 12 months in length. Make sure you understand and know the dates on the lease. Plan for any gaps in housing that you might have. Plan to use hotels or other temporary housing services. Subleases are very abundant during the summers, and they are often at a discounted rate. Do not plan to offset 100% of your costs by subleasing for the months that you're not using the space. 9-month leases are offered at some places at a higher price point. Once you have picked an apartment and signed a lease, the university's resources are not over for you. Off-campus living is there to help you and support you navigate the community you just joined. I'm now going to hand off to Kendra Tironi to talk about moving in and the resources that are available through off-campus living.
Great, thanks so much, Scott. Welcome everybody, I'm Kendra Tironi. I am the Program Director for Off-Campus Living, which is your resource on campus. As a student living off campus, we also provide resources to all the students who commute from home. On the next slide, I'm gonna highlight a couple resources particular to renting for you. The first resource we offer that you most likely might take advantage of is our roommate finder resource. And this is an online tool, basically a Google form we ask you to fill out with information about yourself, what you're looking for, neighborhoods you'd like to consider, your price point, do you have a pet, do you smoke, things like that. And you submit it and we verify that you are an enrolled student before we approve you. And once you're approved, you're given access to the whole spreadsheet, so you can see the listings of other students. And then you would explore and identify other people using the filter option to look at who's looking at the same neighborhoods or wants the same type of housing, apartments or a house rental, and you would reach out to individuals that might be prospective roommates for you. We also have a large number of resource information about roommates within that. There's a folder you have access to with lots of resources to look at. We also have a Facebook group, a housing group on Facebook. There are many housing groups on Facebook, many of which say University of Minnesota or U of M in the title, but they are not all actually affiliated officially with the university. Only the one with the link here, it's a hidden group that our office administers, and we're the only ones that verify that people that we admit to the group are actually enrolled students. So other groups that you may find can also be useful, but they're public groups and there's no verification that they're actually university students that are looking for housing or sublets on those locations. This particular group, students will post openings they may have in units. Often there's sublet opportunities there, people looking for sublets or people trying to provide a sublet to others, and people definitely looking for roommates, sometimes trying to fill a last spot in their group. And so if you go to our Find a Roommate page, it has information about requesting to join that group. So because it is a hidden group, we actually have to have you email us at roommate@umn.edu to request it, and like our off-campus Gopher Facebook page. And those instructions are there on the Renting Your Campus Find a Roommate page if you need to find that. The other great resource that we push out is what Scott just got done talking about, the listing service. This is your best resource in place to start your search for housing. On the next slide, I do have some roommate tips that we've shared, and these are some examples of some of the resource information that you would find. Okay, I see in the chat people mentioning the Facebook group link is not working. Yes, that means basically it's a hidden group. So that's just to let you know, once you're admitted, that's where you'll find it. If you go to that Find a Roommate page, that has the instructions on how to join the group. So if you just follow that, all right. Tips for living with roommates. We do have a couple of things listed there for things for you to talk about with individuals if you're considering living with them. Should you have a roommate conflict that comes up, we do have another office on campus, the Student Conflict Resolution Center. There's a wonderful resource that can help mediate a conflict between you and another student on campus. And that website is sos.umn.edu, as you can see on the screen. So definitely look for that there. And as I mentioned, there are additional roommate tips and resource information if you use the Roommate Finder tool. So on our next slide, I think one of the best resources for you is our website, where we've tried to put everything you might need all in one place. So ocl.umn.edu is the off-campus living website. In particular, the Renting Your Campus tab you'll see is where all of the there's lots of different renter information resources. If you only have a few minutes to look at our website and not a ton of time, on the next slide, I highlight the particular section. It's called Do Your Research, and that's under the Renting Your Campus tab. And it has several different steps you can do as you're doing your housing search. When perhaps you're considering a final place to consider signing a lease with, it gives you particular steps for researching information about that property, Googling the landlord, looking at city information about that property, looking to see if they're on the non-compliance list for the off-campus housing program policy, things like that, that can help you and perhaps ensure a good experience living off campus. Other particular resources I'm going to highlight quickly from our website. One, there's another resource under the Renting Your Campus tab called under Renter Education. We have a Canvas course. Canvas is the main platform on campus that you'll actually do your academic classes, online interactions for that. And we've created a course about renter education. It basically takes a lot of the information that we typically present in a renter education workshop, together with Student Legal Service, and we've put it all online for you to learn and do at your own pace. There's 10 different modules. You don't have to do them all. You can complete one or all 10. You can do any number of them. You can complete them in any order, but it's a great resource for you, and you can find that under the Renter Education tab on our website. On the next slide, I just have some quick references. If you have a couple other minutes on our website, we do have neighborhood information. I'm going to real quickly in a moment go over which neighborhoods are near which campus. So when you're using the listing service, you can see that. But if you want more in-depth information about each of the neighborhoods, it's there under the being a good neighbor section of our website that you can find. And then we also have a safety tab on our website that I just want to point out. We do each month put together a safety report called the Gopher Watch, where we pull together the most recent crime data from the past month and identify trends. And then we've worked with our local public safety partners here on campus and in the city of Minneapolis to provide some tips or advice for you about how to deal with those trends and crimes that might be happening near our campus. So I want to encourage you to check that out each month. We also include that in our newsletter as well. As I mentioned, so on the next slide, just real quickly, if you are taking most of your classes on the East Bank campus, the neighborhoods that you would want to consider searching for if you're using the listing service to search, or when you're talking with other students about where you want to live, the Marcy Holmes neighborhood, the Southeast Como neighborhood, and the Prospect Park neighborhood are the 3 neighborhoods closest to the East Bank campus. And so we do have a little information there about like grocery stores nearby and the transit issues of buses and light rail if they go nearby. In that way. On the next slide, if you have classes that are happening primarily on the West Bank campus, the 2 neighborhoods that are closest to you there would be the Cedar Riverside neighborhood and the Seward neighborhood. And so both of these neighborhoods are, Cedar Riverside is the closest one to West Bank, and then Seward is a little bit further, up to 1.5 miles from the campus. And then lastly, if your classes are happening on the St. Paul campus, the 3 neighborhoods that are closest and most convenient there are the Falcon Heights neighborhood, the Como Park neighborhood, and the St. Anthony Park neighborhood. And so each of those are within a few blocks up to 2 miles from campus. So just keep that in mind as you're considering your commute time and if you're using the bus or the campus connector or light rail again for those. On our next slide, I'm going to highlight real quick. We do have a resource on campus, which is called the Pack and Give Back program. And this is an opportunity. We partner with the reuse warehouse on campus, and we collect items from current students when they're moving out in May that they aren't going to, they don't need again. Maybe they're graduating or leaving campus. And we collect those items and put them together in a free store that we open up during Welcome Week in that first week of classes. Over at the reuse warehouse over at 883 29th Avenue Southeast, and students can go over and pick out household items for free, microwaves, household goods, clothing, all sorts of things. And we also do a pop-up free store of items from that aisle that we bring out and set up over in Kaufman Memorial Union and the Whole Music Club on the Tuesday of Welcome Week, and it's there pretty much all day, like from 11 to 9 p.m. It's open there. So that's another great way to shop. And get some items that you might be needing if you're coming from abroad and aren't bringing a lot with you. And just as a note that you too, when you are moving out next May, you can donate items that you don't need anymore if you want to pass those on to other students. But it's a great option there. I also want to highlight, we have a short-term storage option that the reuse program has been offering this past year, and it's just a great option, especially for international students. If, for example, if you're going home for summer, but then coming back again next fall, and you want to store some items, this is a great option for you. It's pretty affordable, and you can store things anywhere from a couple weeks. So maybe if you do a short-ended lease, where maybe next year you're moving out, middle of August, and then you need to store things until your next place opens up early September. It's another great opportunity there too, if you are staying with us through summer. So just know that that is there for you. On the next slide here, yes, I wanted to highlight a couple of things from our public transit options for you. So just so you are familiar, on campus, we do have a campus connector that helps you get from East Bank to West Bank to the St. Paul campus. It's free. It's part of your transportation charge that you pay to the university. There's also an East Bank circulator, a West Bank circulator, things that you can hop on to easily get around campus. And the Gopher Trip app is an app that you can download that will allow you to look and get information about when the buses are arriving, if they're on time, or are they running late, and help you keep track of that. We also have public transportation here near our campus through Metro Transit. And they have bus lines that they run, as well as a light rail that goes through our campus. And so an easy way to take advantage of that is to utilize the UPass, which has been the current system we've been using for many, many years. Basically, the UPass is a discounted bus pass that students have the opportunity to purchase for $114 a semester. And it gives you basically, it's unlimited rides for the semester. The university is looking at potentially implementing a new universal transit pass this fall. It's not approved yet. It's still in the consultation process. If that happens, then you would no longer need the UPass. UPass sales are supposed to start on August 15th. So I am hopeful that they will make a decision about whether the Universal Transit Pass will be approved by that August 15th date. So you don't have to worry about buying the UPass and then having to get it refunded if they move to the Universal Pass. The Universal Pass would be basically a mandatory transit pass that all students at the university would receive, and they would pay for through their student service fee money. So it would be $45 a semester instead of the $114. So it would be a great discount and very useful in that way. And we do think all students can take advantage of transit and use it to get around events around the cities, as well as getting around campus. If you are using Metro Transit for the bus line or the light rail, you can use the Trip Planner app, the Trip Planner website that Metro Transit has, to plan out your route and help you get from place to place pretty easily. So just know that that is available as well. On the next slide, I did want to highlight some safety resources for you. So on our campus, we are an urban area. So we do want to encourage students to be aware of personal safety and take advantage of resources that we have on campus. We have the 624 Walk program, which is an opportunity for security staff to walk with you if you are going up to a mile off campus, or if you're coming from a mile off campus back to campus. But you have to be either leaving campus or coming to campus to utilize that escort walking assistance. You do need to request it by phone. You normally want to give about 15 or 20 minutes lead time to request that in advance of when you would want the assistance for someone to walk with you. We also have a Gopher Chauffeur program, which is operated by our Boynton Health Service. Actually, it's a student-run driving service where they operate a van, and students drive a van and will pick up students and drive them to other places around campus or near campus and drop them off. It runs at nighttime. So as you can see the schedule there, 8:30 to 12:30, 8:30 at night to 12:30 a.m., Sunday through Wednesday, and Thursday to Saturday, it's 10 and at night till 2:30 in the morning. So this is, again, something you can request via phone, or also they have an app that you can download and use. And again, you probably want to have at least 15 or 20-minute lead time in advance. You request it before you actually need it. I always like to highlight our code blue phones, which you can see the picture of to this on the right side of the screen. And these are phones and video kiosks that are all around our campus and around the edges of our campus. So as you are walking or biking on campus, if you should ever need assistance, perhaps you're experiencing a health emergency, you have personal safety concern, something happens, a crime occurs and you want to notify, and maybe your phone isn't available to you, maybe your phone got stolen, right? This is a chance for you can hit the emergency call button, and it basically brings up the emergency dispatch, the 911, the University Police Department on the kiosk for you to talk to. And they also have videos that they use to help document in case there's crimes happening on or near campus, that it can provide some good information. The police do arrive pretty quickly, normally within a minute or so when you hit that button. So just know that that's an available resource on and near the edges of our campus. And then lastly, the last safety resource I want to share is the Rave Guardian Campus Safety app that our public safety department added this past year. And basically it's an app that you can download and use So that if, for example, if you are walking home and you know that your walk should take you about 15 minutes, in the app, you can log in and enter virtual walking buddies, basically friends or family that you would want to know that you're walking home. And then basically you check in when you get to your location. If you don't check in the time that you have set of how long it should take you, it'll notify those individuals that you've entered. And you also have the option to enter our public safety department or police department so that they could come, if you don't check in that you've arrived at your destination, they'll come look for you and do a well check to make sure you're okay. Yeah. Other, just one quick last thing, we do have a newsletter. We share lots of information, safety information, resource information, other things for you. We encourage you to go to our website. You can scroll down to the bottom of the website and sign up for the neighborhood or renting newsletter. And that's a great resource for you. And then lastly, I'll just share our social media on this last slide. And so we'd love for you to follow us on social media. That is the best way that we try to push out information to you about events, resources, and whatnot. You can always utilize our website, email us. You can also call us. We do sometimes, we'll consult with you if you have questions or concerns that we can try and help you with. All right, at this point in time, I am going to pass off to Adam Elling, who's going to share some great information from Student Legal Service with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kendra. Great slides as always. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Adam Elling. I am an attorney with our Student Legal Service, and Student Legal Service is a full-service on-campus law office. We are the lawyers here for you. We are located on the West Bank. We have 7 attorneys. We have 2 paralegals. We have a law clerk who helps us with research, and then we have all of our support staff that you can make your appointments with or other things that are necessary when working with a law office. We are funded fully through your student service fees. So if you are a student service fee paying student, you are eligible for our services and you will never pay extra money out of pocket for any services that we offer. Unless you're going to court, then you pay court fees, but you pay those to the court. All right, next slide. All right, so we have several areas of practice and ranging from landlord, tenant, immigration, criminal, consumer. We do wills, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, and some things in between. But our biggest area of practice is landlord tenant. And one of the things that we do, and one of my favorite things about this job, is reviewing leases. We have students come in, they bring us their lease, and we go over the lease with them. We explain your rights as a renter in Minnesota. We point out things to look out for in the lease, and we give you some renting tips. One thing that I want everybody to walk away with today and understand is that as soon as you sign a lease, this is a legally binding document. Most leases around the university start right around September 1st. So if you sign a lease now, you are bound to that lease. It doesn't matter if you don't move in on September 1st. It doesn't matter if you don't come to the United States. If you have signed that lease, you are going to be held liable for the entirety of that lease unless you find somebody to replace you, which we call a subtenant or a sublease. So make sure you don't sign a lease until you know that that is the place where you want to live. So do your research, double check your landlord, use all of the resources that Scott and Kendra have already mentioned to make sure that you are renting with somebody who is at least reputable. We can't vouch for the landlords that are on these listing services. I can't vouch for any of the landlords in the area, but if they are showing up on the listings website for the university, we at least know they are real landlords. And I'll get to scams later on, but I guess the most important thing to understand is you will be bound to that lease as soon as you sign it. So make sure that you don't sign 2 leases. A lot of international students will come in and sign 2 leases. They'll think this place looks great. They sign the lease, and then they'll see another place that looks great, and maybe they'll have some friends who will be living in that second place. So then they sign another lease, and now they're legally bound to 2 leases. So be extremely careful before you sign. Go ahead to the next slide. One part of signing a lease is a security deposit that you will pay. This is money that you pay upfront. It's usually equal to 1 month of rent. And this is money that is held by the landlord for you in the event that there is damage to the property beyond ordinary wear and tear. Ordinary wear and tear would be like scratches, scuffs, nicks, dings, things like that on doors and walls and floors. Those aren't things that a landlord can charge you for, but any damage beyond that would come from your security deposit. So we want to protect that money because that's a lot of money. As you saw on Scott's slide earlier, a month of rent can be anywhere from $800 to up to $1,200 or $1,300. So this is a lot of money, and we want to make sure that you protect that money. So on the day that you move in, make sure you take pictures of everything in the apartment or the property that you are moving into. All of the walls, all of the floors, all of the ceilings, all of the fixtures, appliances, everything that you can take a picture of, take a picture of it. We want to note the condition of everything on the day that you move in. Also, write down the condition of everything. If something is damaged, write it down and immediately provide that to your landlord on the day that you move in. Then you'll have a great year living in your property and everything's going to go great, and you'll stay up with your cleaning throughout the duration of your lease. But when you go to move out, I need you to clean everything like crazy. Clean like you have never cleaned before. Pull out the refrigerator, pull out the stove, scrub behind everything, and really also work on the toilets and the bathtubs. All right. This is where we see a lot of security deposits get deducted. So we want to make sure that everything is clean. And then once everything is clean and all of your stuff is moved out, take pictures again of the entirety of the property. So you know you have a perfect record of what it looked like on the day you moved in and a perfect record of what it looked like on the day you moved out. That way, if your landlord does withhold some of your security deposit and you disagree with that withholding, we have proof to say that's not the condition, or that's not what it was like when I moved out, or that's what it looked like when I moved in. All right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, back to leases. So every lease must identify the following things: the parties to the lease, which means you, the tenant, and the landlord, including their contact information. You have to know how to be able to reach your landlord. The lease also has to have the rent amount. It also has to have the term for the lease, and it has to have the unit number for where you will be living. I'm going to go back to the lease term. The lease term is when the lease starts and when it ends. Like I said earlier, a lease typically starts on or around September 1st around the university. Lately, and more often, we are seeing leases end. So if a lease starts on September 1st, 2022, we are seeing the leases end around August 1st or August 15th of 2023. That's not a full 12 months. That's 11 months or 11 and a half months, yet you will probably be paying for the entire 12 months. There's a law that says that landlords can't do that anymore, but the landlords are getting sneaky and working around that. I'm not going to get into the weeds on what that law is, but if you have questions about it, reach out to us. But you have to watch out for these short end leases, especially for international students, because if you are planning to live somewhere else, so let's say you sign a lease for property A to start September 1st, 2022, and it ends August 15th, 2023, and your lease for property B doesn't start until September 1st, 2023. Now you've got 15 or 16 days without anywhere to live or anywhere to go. And if you don't have family nearby, or you don't have the means for paying for a hotel, you could be in a difficult situation. And we see this every year, particularly with international students. So the short end lease is something you really need to pay attention to. So when you sign that lease for property B, you either want it to start at the same time property A's lease ends, or you need to have other accommodations set up. And like Kendra had mentioned in her presentation, there is storage available for you to put your things. So if you're going to go back home, or you're going to travel for a little while over the summer, you could put that stuff into the storage, and then your lease ends, and then you can move into the property. So really pay attention to the lease term when you are signing a lease. But all of these things, the parties, the amount of rent, the lease term, and the unit number, all have to be on your lease before you sign it. So make sure those are all there. Okay, avoid scams. A lot of our international students can fall victim to scams because they're not in the area. You're overseas, or you're in a different country, and you don't have the ability to come and look at the property before you sign the lease. So it's best to use the listings.umn.edu to find these reputable landlords. Once again, we're not vouching for these landlords, but at least the people listed on those lists, we know are actual landlords who actually have properties that they can offer you. Far too often, we find students are finding properties via Craigslist or different Facebook groups that aren't affiliated with the university. And what is happening is they're sending money or they're signing a lease and they're expecting to have a property, and then they show up and that property doesn't even exist. I mean, it's not even a property that there's not even an address, there's not a building, there's not a house there. So be really careful. One thing to watch out for is if a landlord ever asks for a security deposit or a first month of rent to be paid in gift cards, don't pay it. Guaranteed scam, automatically do not pay. Don't ever put money down at a property by paying with a gift card. But last and certainly not least, and I'll repeat myself again, if you are ever in doubt or if you have any concerns, or if you just want to understand your rights a little bit as a landlord, or I'm sorry, as a tenant, and what a landlord can and can't do throughout the duration of your lease, just contact us. We will happily review your lease with you. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass this on now.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to go to the next slide. And so a lot of students had questions around, who do I ask questions about safety? And so we do have an international intern over at the University of Minnesota Police Department, or UMPD for short. Her name is Paida Chikate. And you are able to reach out to her directly through the link that we will send over on the chat. And she's taking questions that she can then pass on to her, to the other officers at the UMPD office. But she is available throughout the summer, and you will get to meet her in the fall and the spring semester as well. So the next part of our presentation today and webinar is to invite our student leaders and our student speakers today to share a little bit about some key tips that were helpful for them as students living off campus or around the area. So I'm going to pass it on over to Ray first.
Thank you, Marina. So my first tip is to read the lease contract carefully. As Adam said, there are a lot of information in the lease. Here are some points I think is very important. So from the lease, sometimes, the apartment comes with the furniture or not, there will be an extra cost if there is no furniture. And some of the apartments allow the pets, some are not, or some just cats only. And also you will know a lot of policy about repairing and maintenance. And also each apartment has specific rules, like people staying overnight if you want to hold a party, something like that. And the most important thing for me is deposit and fees, because some fees might be non-returnable and sometimes it's really confusing. I strongly suggest you read the lease contract very carefully. Ask any information if you want. You call the landlord. Also find the student legal services to review the lease. They will answer every question you have. I will pass it to Ife.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I have two pieces of advice for you. The first one is just as a past resident advisor, it is important early on to set boundaries with your roommates, and those you'll be living with. These boundaries will help you, to know those who are living with you, to know what kind of behaviors are acceptable to you and the ones that are not. And it also helps prevent future conflict. Secondly, some of the apartments do not come with any furniture and some don't come with any, kitchen utensils, and you might need to buy some. You don't have to, spend a lot of money buying furniture or any of those things, because it's possible to get them on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. I suggest also, before checking those places, you check the university reuse center, because they usually have nice items for more affordable prices. I'll pass it on to Yu Ting.
Thank you, Ife. I want to talk about the parking and public transportation. before you choose the place to live, it'd be nice to take the public transportation options or other transportation option nearby your housing into consideration as well. If you have a vehicle like a car, don't forget to check the parking option for your housing and know the campus parking policies via the campus parking and transportation service. I'll put the link to the chat later. If you don't have the vehicle, check the available public transportation option nearby your housing by using the Google Map to check your class's location and plan your transportation time accordingly. Use the Gopher Trip to check the schedule for school buses like the Campus Connector 121, and use the Metro Transit app to check the schedule for Metro Transit light rail and buses. Well, it is never wrong to be familiar with your public transportation option and have plans for your travel. I will pass it to you.
Thank you, Yuting. So I believe as a graduate student, there might be a slight difference in terms of your preferred living environment or a health matter related to housing. But even so, I think it's like as a repeated conversations already, please make sure to utilize the university service and trustworthy listing sites that include the UMN, the listing at umn.edu. I find it very helpful in finding housing. Potentially, perhaps schedule a virtual tour or call either with your lease landlords or perhaps your roommate to actually see the place. And if not, also just to get to know the person prior to you moving it would help. And I think this is a very common conversation for graduate students, as some of you might be arriving with family members or spouse. So it's also very important to check the lease agreement specifically to see that there's additional turn-in, moving ins. And I think it also might be very helpful to look into CTC housing at UMN or CSCC, a Commonwealth Student Community Cooperative, as your options for housings too, if you are arriving with family as well. And please make sure to also check out the graduate housing guidebook, which I find very helpful for us finding new places. And I think I'm going to pass it back to Emily.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Emily. I am one of our international counselors here at ISSS, and I'm excited to meet you all and welcome you here today. I wanted to talk about two different things that relate to your immigration and housing. The first is that we do have some information in the International Student Preparation course that talks about housing. If you've already taken it and you want to revisit it, you can find that on module 2.11. Or if you haven't taken it yet, you'll know that you'll get it in the second module as you're working through the International Student Preparation course. Additionally, when it comes to housing, you will need to record your address in MyU within 10 days of moving into your new home when you arrive here in the United States. This is really important anytime that you move, that you update MyU with your new address to make sure that you're maintaining your visa status. So anytime that you move, that includes when you come here, and then anytime that you move after that, make sure that you're updating your address in MyU. And if you have any questions about that, please reach out to us. Right now, you can reach out to us at issssnew@umn.edu. I'm going to pass it back to Yue Ting.
Thank you, Emily. Then I will talk about how to stay connected with SSS. There are many ways to stay connected with SSS as a new international student, including the new student website in SSS at www.sss.umn.edu/new and our Global Gopher Experience website. I'll put the link to the chat later as well. You can also contact us at sssnew@umn.edu via the email, and the SSS staff member will respond to you. As an international student, it is never wrong to ask and connect with SSS. So again, welcome to our Global Gopher family. Make sure you also follow us on our social media channel. Next, I'll pass it to Marina to introduce the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Yue Ting. And again, welcome everybody. We had a very extensive workshop today on how to be successful securing housing off campus and living off campus. So right now it's the Q&A portion, the questions and answers. I see that some people have been able to submit questions in the Q&A button. So if you see at the bottom of the screen, you're able to submit those questions. But we do have some questions that we have received earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one. I'll invite both Adam Well, I'll invite Adam to the screen. It's about insurance. And so we had a question about whether students needed to pay for insurance when they move in their off-campus housing.
It really depends on what your lease says. Some leases require it, some of them don't. My recommendation is if it isn't required by your lease, at the very least, get renter's insurance for your personal property. These are policies that usually run somewhere between $10 to $11 a month, and it would pay for the replacement cost of any of your property that gets damaged or stolen while you're living in your rental property. But pay attention to what your lease says and whether or not it's required or if liability insurance is required.
Thank you, Adam. Our next question is for Kendra. If I can't solve the conflict with a roommate, what options do I have instead of staying until the lease ends?
Sure. So yeah, if you're having issues, obviously we encourage you to work with the Student Conflict Resolution Center to try and help you mediate that conflict and work through it. If the mediation process is unsuccessful, you would definitely want to reach out to your apartment management and ask if there's a possibility for them to move you or the other roommate to a different unit and see if they can help move you within the complex, but still honor your lease. It's going to be very difficult. You can't really break a lease just because of a roommate conflict. That's not considered a valid reason to be released from a lease. In some extenuating circumstances, sometimes roommate conflicts can lead to mental health issues, and then that might be an avenue. You would definitely want to work with Student Legal Service on that if that were, but that's a very difficult way to get out of a lease in that way. So your last kind of resort option would be, if those don't work, would be to try and sublet your space within your apartment and have someone take over your lease and take on that financial obligation. And then you would then find a new location to live and sign a secondary lease, knowing that you've found someone to take responsibility for that first lease for you. Those would kind of be your options at that point.
Thank you, Kendra. I have an additional question, and this might be more for Adam again. Is there an official regulation not allowing a family of 3 rent a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment?
No, there used to be zoning and maximum occupancy rules and ordinances in Minneapolis, but those no longer exist. So there shouldn't be an issue with a family of 3 renting a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. My next question is for Scott. One of the questions was, how do I find off-campus housing? And I know you've said this in your presentation, but it does not hurt for us to hear this again.
Go to listings.umn.edu, and from there you can search for off-campus housing.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for repeating that. My next question is for a student leader, if they're willing to come up on stage, is advice on how to make friends with a roommate. Maybe I'll invite youth to share, and Ray.
Thank you, Marina. So I think I do want to repeat what Ife has said already. It's important to set boundary at the beginning. And I think finding common ground as we go is actually important too. I find sharing food and cultures once in a while with your roommate is actually quite helpful. If you do cook, if you do not, feel free to also get or introduce new foods or food cultures to your roommate to actually get each other familiar, because through culture, you're actually able to understand certain living conditions and certain living preference too. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Ray.
Oh yeah, thank you, Ife. Thank you, Yus. And I will also say that Ife's thing is that set up the boundary is very important, because a lot of things you need to use it using the kitchen sometimes together, also share the same fridge. It's super confusing if you don't have a boundary. You probably messed up with the food. You cannot someone just not happy about the kitchen being so messy. It's definitely a good thing to set up rules with your roommates, which makes a lot of things easier later living with him or her. Yeah, that's all. I'll pass it back to Marina.
Thank you, Ray and Youth. I have two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up for today, and then go on to the next pieces of our webinar. The first one is payment for security deposit compulsory for the first month of rent? Maybe
I can
have
take
Adam.
this. Yeah.
Thank you.
This is a very good question. So the security deposit is a separate payment from the first month of rent. So the first month of rent gets paid in addition to the security deposit. Some properties around the university are trending towards waiving the security deposit altogether. I'm very leery of this. I'm going to get on a soapbox for just a second here. Because when you pay a security deposit, that's your money that the landlord is holding. So you have a lot of rights that go along with it. And the laws are written very specifically to protect that money for you. If you don't pay a security deposit, then I want you to take all of my advice about taking pictures and cleaning and everything like that and double it. Because what can happen is the landlord now holds all of the power. So if there is damage beyond ordinary wear and tear, if there's excessive cleaning that the landlord has to do, they send a bill to the tenant. And if you don't pay that bill within 30 days or whatever timeline they put onto it, they can send you to collections, they can sue you in conciliation court, and they can make things really difficult. So if you don't pay a security deposit, which is fine, it's normal, be really careful that you are really documenting the condition of your property at the beginning and end of your tenancy. But again, to answer the question specifically, the security deposit is paid separately, and it's a different fee that you pay from the first month of rent.
Thank you, Adam, for that question. We'll take one more question. Someone asked, can you say something about how tight the housing market is? Is it advisable to look for an accommodation in advance, or can you also do that after you arrive? As an international student, I am able to do international early housing during August and could search for a place on site. Maybe I'll look at Kendra. Would you be able to take this question?
Sorry, I was in the middle of starting to type a response on a different question on the Q&A. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Can you say something about how tight the housing market? Basically, should they?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. So right now we have more spaces near campus than we have students to rent. So while it is very competitive to get housing very close to the edge of campus, the locations that are closest to the borders of our campus will likely be full. There are many locations 3 blocks away, 6 blocks away, 9 blocks away, 12 blocks away that have spaces still available. So you just have to recognize that you may need to be walking or biking from a location, hopping on a bus to get here, but there still are plenty of locations in the near campus areas. But the ones that are closest to campus, like basically, I would say within a 3-block radius, those locations are probably full at this point. But the ones beyond that still have plenty of spaces because we are, as we refer to it, we are kind of overbuilt. They have built a lot of newer apartment complexes near our campus. And we also have houses that are available to rent, and a lot of the house rentals, the ones that are a little bit further, are not full at this point either. So yes, there's lots of places for you. So even when you come in August, there would still be locations available to find. Now, you do still have to do your due diligence and examine and make sure that it's a landlord that you want to rent with, that their reputation is good. You want it, the condition of the property. The further away you get, sometimes the rent gets a little cheaper, and that can be helpful as well. The places closest to campus are going to be the most expensive as well. But you definitely want to ask the same questions whether you're renting from abroad or renting in person in August.
Thank you, Kendra. And again, thank you, Kendra and Adam and Scott, for being here with us today to answer a lot of questions. I see there's additional questions coming in through the Q&A. Please email us at isssnew at umn.edu, and we'd be more than happy to redirect your questions and provide you more answers. At the end of today's session, we will have our recording available, so we'll send out all the contact information plus all the links that were shared throughout the chat, so you don't have to keep track of what was shared today. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pass it on over to Ray to talk about what is next for us.
Sure. So the next session is it's a Q&A session. It happens on June 29th, 8 to 9 a.m. and Central Time. Please register through the link z.umn.edu/ggejune for the event. And we're looking for our communications in the next webinar.
Thank you, everybody. And we're saying goodbye to you all, but you may enjoy Goldie Gopher dancing to some hip music of the last few years. So goodbye, everybody, and thank you so much.
I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it. I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good, good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on. All those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on. Ooh, it's something magical. It's in the air, it's in my blood, it's rushing on. I don't need no reason, don't need control. I fly so high, no ceiling when I'm in my zone. Cause I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop, stop, stop. Under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and we will see you at the next webinar. Goodbye.